Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto suchedoye alahuri samyao sanputoshi.
Namo saranto suchedoye alahuri samyao sanputoshi.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture today. 师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛。My name is Heng Sure. Today is Sunday, January the 3rd, here in Australia, Gold Coast of Queensland. It is Saturday night, January 2nd, in California and in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're in North America or Europe listening in, South America, Latin America, glad that you're with us. We have a double lecture today. Some of you who looked on YouTube may have been surprised to see that it said lectures on the Pureland. Well, why is this? It's because, yes, we are going to continue to explain the Avatamsaka Sūtras 10 stages chapter as we do every week at this time. And one of my goals is to interest the newcomers in coming back and listening to this lecture every week. But there's a special circumstance, which is, number one, Happy New Year to everybody. Welcome to 2021. But another special circumstance is that City of 10,000 Buddhas has just concluded today their Buddha Recitation 7, 4-chi, their retreat where they devote 7 days to reciting the Buddha's name. That concluded today, and I was invited to give 2 talks during the course of that retreat, with the third talk being tonight. So we decided, myself and Dharma Master Xing'an, who's coordinating the series, that we would combine the 2 lectures. So tonight, my job, which is a bit of a challenge, but I appreciate it, welcome it, enjoy it. Part of my challenge is to both explain the next step in the Flower Garland Sutras 10 stages chapter, but also to give a talk about Pureland practice. The reason why we can do this is because of that last word, practice. What I've been explaining is what are called the 3 requisites, 三资糧, the 3 requisites for rebirth in the Pure Land: faith, vows, and practice. And I've done faith and vows, so tonight is practice. And of course, that is the heartbeat of the Bodhisattva on his journey through the 10 stages. So that's how we can easily combine these 2 into one lecture. Hope you think so, hope you agree. So we're going to start, as we always do, with the sutra, and I'm going to return to page 64 when we've done the invocation. So join me now, please, if you'd care to do so, in invoking spiritual presence, Flower Garland Sutras Assembly, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Assembly, and the Sutra itself. That's how we do it. Here it is on the screen, and we chant it. The idea is that we are inviting, respectfully, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come and bless this assembly. And we who are here happily listening. Okay, here we go. I had a genuine blessing, actually pretty much this time last year, although it was a month earlier. We were in a delegation. There was a delegation of friends from Dharma Buddhist Association traveling. I'm going to scroll here, sorry for that. Let me scroll. Here we go. All right. Still scrolling. And 64 is what we're looking for. There it is, right there. Okay, all right. Now, what I wanted to say was, this time last year, I was in Dun Huang, out in Gansu province in far western China. Dun Huang is an oasis. It's a place where on the Silk Route where caravans of camels mostly, and occasional horse, and armies, and monks, and traders and merchants would stop on their way going west to the Hellenistic world, to Rome, to Persia, to India, and a place where they would stop on their way back heading for Xing'an and the cities on the Silk Route. And in Dun Huang, people know they have incredible cave art where people who had the means would hire artists to make images, sacred images of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and wonderful scenes from Sūtras. They would either carve them create them out of 3D images, or they would paint them on the wall. And one of the main themes that I saw that impressed me was how much, because in an oasis along the trade route, people are traveling. It's like kind of like a roadside rest on the interstate, right, on the freeway. people are hungry, they're tired, but they're not going to stay. They're just there briefly. And they've been in file, they've been in lines, coming across some of the most forbidding desert landscape, the Taklamakan Desert, the Gobi Desert, and the Himalayan mountains crossing over. And so they're very used to being in motion. And what I saw painted on the walls of Dun Huang were these scenes of people in the presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with musical instruments in their hand, going through a ceremony. The ceremonies often involved processions. So lines of people walking in front of the Buddhas, around the Buddhas, going to bow, going to make offerings, going to listen to the sutras being lectured, and people just with looks of delight on their face, looks of rapture and deep respect. And I thought, wow, if there was a soundtrack to those wall paintings, the paintings hit our eyes, but if we could use our ears to go back to the scene depicted in this painting, there would be music and there would be people pouring out their hearts in devotion. So I thought, boy, when we go back, there's a precedent for us to use stringed instruments. And they used flutes on the bands, the musical bands that were making the music, had percussion, had dong, 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 had drums, and they had stringed instruments, and they had wind instruments, flutes and fifes, and metal instruments, dong, 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 like that, and bells. So it's quite wonderful. And I thought, so our invocation that we do to begin the sutra is right in line with the way it used to be done. So never mind we're using a 5-string banjo, that's probably okay. A lot of the instruments that come in the walls, painted on the walls from the Tang Dynasty, look very much like banjos, right? Because it's kind of a universal stringed instrument shape. All right, so welcome to the newcomers who are here for the first time at an Avatamsaka Sutra lecture, because you've come from the City of 10,000 Buddhas, Foqi Buddha Recitation Retreat. 特别欢迎你们各位. This is for those of you who have been part of my first 2 lectures on faith and on vows. This will be the concluding lecture on practice, and I appreciate the invitation to our Master Jin setting up this opportunity. And one thing that's different is that the Chinese translation you are hearing is real Chinese. It's not me, because we have volunteers here taking the responsibility of turning my words in English into Mandarin. So you all who are listening every week in Chinese can hear, and also those of you who would be hearing me translate my own English get to hear some accurate Mandarin. So that's a blessing too. And also we appreciate very much our friends who are translating my words into Vietnamese as well. So we've got 3 languages happening, and let's look at today's sutra passage. Whoop, that's not what I want. I want that one. Here it is. All right. We're going to read this passage, and it's going to sound a little confusing till we explain it. That's all right. Here we go. 佛子菩萨实地因佛智故而有差别，如是如因大地有十山王，何等为十？所谓雪山王、香山王、比陀利山王、神贤山王、有千陀山王、马尔山王、尼民陀罗山王、 卓杰罗山王，季多莫地山王，须弥路山王。Okay? Disciples of the Buddha, we can make distinctions between the Bodhisattva's 10 stages using the aspect of the Buddha's wisdom, just as from the earth come the 10 kings of mountains. Which 10? They are King of Mountains, snow; King of Mountains, fragrance; King of Mountains, Vaidari; King of Mountains, spiritual immortal; King of Mountains, Yugam Dara; King of Mountains, horse ear; King of Mountains, Nimindara; King of Mountains, Chakravada; King of Mountains, Ketumati; and King of Mountains, Sumeru. Okay, what's going on here? Disciples of the Buddha, we can distinguish Bodhisattva's 10 stages looking at the Buddha's wisdom as the index, as the file tabs that we're going to tell the difference. Just like, if you get an analogy, 10 kings of mountains, and then we heard a list of 10. All right, for those who are brand new to this, what's going on? What do we have happening here? We have, and by the way, how do you like my lotus? Isn't that nice? I took that photograph 3 days ago at our lotus pond, and the light was just right to black out the background. So that's an Australian-born lotus here from the Gold Coast Dharma realm. Now, what's going on? The Flower Garland Sutra, the Huayan Dafang Guangpo Huayan, is a very large text that the Buddha spoke right away after he woke up under the Bodhi tree by the riverbank. And it's among sutras, it's a long one. It's not the longest. That's the Prajna Sutra. And it's considered the biggest by content because the Avatamsaka Sutra contains a lot of beautiful blossoms. It's called the flower garland. And among those flower blossoms, probably you can't say there's one that's the premier of them all. There's many wonderful ones. But among the wonderful blossoms and the flower garland is the one called the 10 stages, Shirdi Pin, the Dashabhumi. And the Dashabhumi, the Shirdi Pin, is a teaching that the Buddha, it's recorded in the Buddhist canon multiple times, but it is one chapter inside the Flower Garland Sutra. There are 40 chapters altogether, and this is one of them. It's one of the longer chapters. And in the 10 stages chapter, it's talking about what? It's talking about the Bodhisattva. And certainly Bodhisattvas are is the topic of many other chapters, but this is the chapter that explains the Bodhisattva path clearly, thoroughly, from start to finish. And it breaks it down into what are called 10 stages, 10 steps. Shirdi. We used to call it the 10 grounds, but grounds are what you have when you throw away your coffee filter. That's coffee grounds. So D is the ground, but when we're talking about stages of the path, we could also call this what? The 10 levels, the 10 stories, like a building with stories that an elevator goes up. That would also make the same point. It's graduated levels of accomplishment as the Bodhisattva is heading for Buddhahood. So there's 1 to 10. And we've been explaining it now for 5 years, long time, going bit by bit. And we're at number 10. We're at the top. We've reached the final stage of the Bodhisattva's 10 stages. And he or she is almost a Buddha in terms of wisdom, not far. The amount of ignorance, darkness, covering, attachment, afflictions, false thinking that the Bodhisattva has removed from his or her mind is nearly all, almost complete, so that Buddha nature is shining. And the sutra, one of the main points of the sutra is describing what that's like. What happens when you've removed all of the things that block your Buddha nature? And what happens? Wisdom shines forth. Eloquence is present. Something called dharani is there, this ability to use sound to teach. Also, samadhis are multiple and manifest. Incredible. So that's what our sutra is talking about. Bodhisattva path, right? And this passage we just heard, 10 mountains, kings of mountains. How interesting. Why are they called kings of mountains? Well, mountains have tallest, tall, and not so tall, right? Tall, taller, and the tallest. So, likewise, Bodhisattva stages are ranked. They are levels of accomplishment that are beyond ordinary people, but a 10th stage is taller than a 9th, taller than an 8th, on down, like that. So here our speaker, his name is Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva, is saying, okay, we're going to use, his job is to tell us what a 10th stage Bodhisattva is like, and then inspire us to want to be one, want to imitate it. So he says there are 10 mountains that are outstanding. He gives us the names, and the next thing that's going to happen is he's going to say each mountain is like one of the stages. All right? We saw the names, okay? And somebody's going to say, why do you say King of Mountains snow instead of Himalayas or something like that? King of Mountains fragrance. Why do you have the specific name following the generic name, the name that's the same? The answer to that question is, King of Mountains is a title. Snow or fragrance or Vaidari is the specific name. Just like what? We say President Biden, soon. Vice President Harris. We don't say Biden President, right? Or Harris Vice President. We say title first. So Bodhisattva Guan Shi Yin, we say. So King of Mountains, snow, is like that. Okay, we got that first passage out of the way. One more, then I'm going to switch over to Pureland. Okay, so hang in there. If you're feeling a bit lost, like this is a deep ocean, it is. This is a big sutra. But it's so inspiring to understand that a bodhisattva is a person, just like you, like me, who has made a resolve, who has given themselves a promise, like a vow, like someone wanting to go to the Pure Land, right? And then set about practicing. So they first heard about the potential of the mind, what they were capable of. We can become Buddhas. They believed it. They decided that was what they wanted to do, and now they're on the path, heading towards success, right? So, xin, yuan, xin, faith, vows, and practice are the hallmark, the beating heart of the Bodhisattva path. Okay, next paragraph. What does it say? 佛子如雪山王，一切药草，先在其中，取不可尽。菩萨所住欢喜地，亦复如是。一切世间经书集译文松咒术，显在其中， 说不可尽. Disciples of the Buddha, just as the king of mountains, snow, has an endless supply of every medicinal herb, the Bodhisattvas abiding upon the stage of happiness is the same, with its endless quantity of mundane books and treatises, arts and skills, texts and verses, mantras and incantations. Okay, so we're hearing about 10 kings of mountains. The Bodhisattva is using them as an analogy. He says, think of this. Probably to see the king of mountains snow, the Bodhisattva goes, there it is there, right? Just raise your eyes and look up. Ooh, the Himalayas. That's actually the Sanskrit that came from this. Himalaya Jatiki or something like that. And Giriji. And, hold on, I've actually got it here. One moment. Got all my, here it is. Shanwang, Himalaya Giri Raja. This is the king of mountains. This mountain has medicinal herbs that can cure all the illnesses, and it's an endless supply of them. It's like the wisdom dharma, the dharma medicine of wisdom of the Bodhisattva on the first stage, which is infinite, endless in supply. It breaks ignorance and surpasses all of the previous stages. There we go. So that's our notes page. We've got a really healthy looking 10th stage notes going. You could publish this and make a book out of it. Okay, so you understand what's happening here? The context is this is a conversation between Vajra Treasury and Moon of Liberation, two bodhisattvas, and Vajra Treasury is answering the question, what is the 10th stage bodhisattva like? So he's reaching around for something that we can recognize so that we can start with something we recognize to understand something we don't, that's beyond us, right? So the 10th stage bodhisattva is way out there in his ability or her ability. But if we can visualize Mount Sumeru, the Himalayas, Giri Raja, the king of mountains, then what's that like? Tall, snow-capped. You don't see the peak for days and days and months of the year because the storms of the snow. The Himalayas contain the tallest mountain on earth. Now, these 10 mountains, mind you, this is Buddhist geography. So it's not the case that the Xing'an, the Himalayas, that the Bodhisattva here is talking about refers to our mountain range in Tibet and Nepal. Different, right? But still, from something we understand, we can associate and understand something that's beyond us. That's how analogies work, right? So he says, what's the character of snowy mountains? Is its ability to produce herbs. I wonder, I haven't heard any discussion about where the coronavirus vaccine comes from in nature. I'd be interested. I haven't seen that discussion anywhere. It's not too far wrong to say that many of the Western medicines that come out of laboratories like Pfizer and Moderna and AstraZeneca and all have their source in the natural world, right? Many of the miracle drugs that we know about actually are synthesized out of something that grows in nature. So when you go, I don't know if many of the listeners have had this experience. How many of you have gone to a Chinese doctor and had not acupuncture but herbs as your medicine, right? if you've ever been to a Chinese pharmacy and you're holding a prescription, the Chinese pharmacist looks at the characters, and I don't know, do Chinese doctors have terrible handwriting? That's a cliche that Western doctors have terrible handwriting. So they look at the prescription, and they turn around and go to the wall, and the wall of a Chinese pharmacy is a cabinet with tens and tens and tens and tens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of drawers. And they start pulling out drawers, and out of these drawers in the cabinet on the wall come tree bark, roots of plants, leaves of plants, mushrooms, sometimes parts of animals, right? And it's all completely organic, dried and powdered and gathered and, just right there in front of you. And they, depending on how old-fashioned they are, they wrap it up in white paper. You take it home, put it into a pot with the right amount of water, and boil it. And you boil it for hours, and the whole house starts to smell like Chinese medicine, right? And then you drink it out of a bowl, and you are drinking a blend of nature, right? So organic Chinese herbal medicine has not been synthesized. It has not been put into any machine. It is right there in front of you, And you pour out the herbs after you've drunk the liquid that you boil it down to, and you're looking right at the bark and the mushrooms and the leaves and the stems and the stalks, and it's really organic. And it goes into your body and it changes you and it rebalances you because you are deficient here or excessive there. So medicinal herbs are very much a part of Chinese pharmacopoeia, right? This is materia medica, they call it. And it was prescribed in books in the Han Dynasty, like the Huangdi Neijing Suwan, the Yellow Emperor's classic of internal medicine, is still a textbook. Because why? Nature is still creating the same plants and trees and roots and flowers, etc. And they're still working on our bodies the same way. Western medicine has, some cases, still uses natural herbs, witch hazel, for example, traditional medicine, right, things like that. But by and large has taken the next step of taking the raw materials and putting them into factories. And then the factories produce the herbs, or pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, synthesizes medicines out of nature. But Chinese medicine, Indian medicine, Ayurveda uses food the same way. But here in our analogy, King of Mountains, snow, Xie Shanwang, is where you go if you want to gather medicinal herbs. And the Sutra tells us that it's infinite source, infinite supply. Big, tall mountain, go to valleys. People always say when they go to climb Mount Everest, or if you go to climb K2 or any of the really challenging, famous mountains, that on the way, as you're trekking through Nepal or where you're going, there are many, many valleys that are like rainforests. When you think, oh, Mount Everest must be all snowy and icy, right? No, the foothills, the base camps, are green and full of incredible life and the just nature in every form, right? So, infinite source of medical herbs. Okay, that's one piece of the analogy. Likewise, the other piece of the analogy, the stage of happiness, Huan Shi Di, the first stage of the Bodhisattva's 10 stages, is like that too, which is what? It doesn't produce plants that heal the body. It produces books and treatises, arts and skills, texts and verses, mantras and incantations, which heal our illness of samsara, ignorance, affliction. Got it? Okay, you know what follows? 9 more. 9 more mountains, 9 more on this hand, on the other hand. So it's going to go through the all 10 stages, linking each one up with the succession of mountains. So 10 mountains, 10 stages going up. Okay, there you go. We're done with that piece of today's lecture for now. If you enjoy this feeling of looking through the Bodhisattva's telescope, his lenses, his microscope at the world and the human mind, please do return. What we have is called the Sutra of the Dharma realm. The Avatamsaka Sutra is considered to be the king of kings of sutras. It contains the essence of the Buddha's teaching. And it inspires us because the Bodhisattva is who carries the sutra along. And these are people with tremendous power to inspire us to be better people, right? Alrighty. So, we're going to switch topics right this minute and talk instead about the Pureland practice, which is one particular school, one particular method. We call them Dharma doors, Faman, gateways to the Dharma, Dharma gateways. That is by far the most popular, the most well-used method in all of Buddhist East Asia. Not Zen, not meditation. Surprising to me as a Westerner who thought meditation is Buddhism, Buddhism is meditation. When I actually discovered how people practice in the Mahayana tradition, also partly in the Vajrayana tradition, it had to do with devotion to a Buddha, Amitabha. And this Buddha was not our Buddha. Who's our Buddha? Shakyamuni Buddha. The Buddha is Shakyamuni, right? Well, when we get to the Pure Land, Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha, told a story of another Buddha. He said, you need to hear this because you won't know about it if I don't tell you this story. So he did. He spoke about the Pure Land in 3 sutras, which then some say 5 sutras. 3 of the Mito Sanjing, the Amitabha trilogy, you could say, of sutras, the trinity of sutras. The Buddha's teaching on Amitabha Sutra. It's called the shorter Amitabha Sutra. Then called the Sutra of the Buddha of Limitless Light. Said it wrong. Limitless Life, L-I-F-E. Wu Liang Shou Jing, Sutra of the Buddha of Limitless Lifespan. And then contemplating the Buddha of Limitless Lifespan. 3 sutras. Later, 2 more got added, 5. So now we have a common collection that is contended. Some people say there were only 3, you shouldn't add the other 2. That's all right. I see value in adding the 2. What are they? Number 4 would be the chapter of the Shurangama Sutra of great strength, Bodhisattva's mindfulness of the Buddha. In Chinese, it's called 大师至菩萨念佛圆通章, 楞严经来的. It's from the Shurangama Sutra. That's number 4. Then number 5 is what? Number 5 is a chapter from the Flower Garland Sutra that we just looked at, the Avatamsaka Sutra. It's the last chapter, chapter 40, and it's called in Chinese 大方广佛华严经入不思议解脱境界普现恒愿品. It's called the chapter on the inconceivable gateway to liberation of the practices and vows of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. In short, called Samantabhadra's Practices and Vows chapter. And as I was explaining for the Amitabha session at City of 10,000 Buddhas this week, the first, in order to talk about my topic, which was the three prerequisites, 三资糧, to talk about faith first, I just opened up Chapter 40, Samantabhadra's Practices and Vows, the section on the Pureland, and use that to challenge everybody. Ask the question first, how do you visualize the Pureland? Because our first topic is what? Faith, it's called. Faith, F-A-I-T-H. Also called trust, also called belief. Different, you turn the jewel a different way, you get different lights. So faith, trust, belief. Believability, right? Trustworthiness, faithfulness. So I just reported it and went through that piece of Samantabhadra's Practices and Vows chapter from the Flower Garland Sutra and said, here is the way the Buddha gives us an image of the Pure Land. How do you visualize? What's your Pure Land look like as you understand the existence of this place? So most people would, if you ask that question, they would say, well, in the Amitabha Sutra it says it's in the west, the ground is yellow gold, there are birds that speak the Dharma, there are pools of merit and virtue that when you bathe in them, all of your afflictions and doubts wash away. You're born from their lotus flower, the Buddha greets you, right? These are the features of the Pure Land that appear in the Amitabha Sutra. And most of us, visualizing what's it like. Do you believe such a place could exist? There's no suffering there. There's no hells, no animals, no ghosts. How about that? 3 evil destinies don't exist. For that reason, there's no McDonald's. Or the McDonald's that's there is a completely veggie McDonald's. Maybe they still serve French fries and malts, but it's got to be almond milk and no pig fat in the French fries. Right? So that's faith, right? And then to the next lecture, I talked about the second part. Once we believe that such a place exists, we have to say to ourselves, I'd like to go there. I would really like to go. Take me to the Pure Land. So we believe that it's there, but you know what? It's called 10万亿佛度. It's called 10 million trillion, is that a trillion? Miles. Buddha lands, 10 million trillion Buddha lands to the west, away from us right now. So, how do we cross that gap? How do we get there from here? And the second requisite of the Pure Land that I talked about was called a vow. And we looked into vows, and the vow is, I try to pin it down to what our teacher, Master Shenhua, how he described it. And Shifu was so good at essentializing, taking principles of the Dharma down to the core, to the potent seed that when you plant it in the ground of Western people's minds or contemporary people's minds, Western and Eastern alike, that seed takes root and grows. What did he say? He said, it's a wish from your heart, but you mean it. That's what a vow is. It's a thought like any other. And everybody who has ever gone to the Pure Land and been reborn there, which is what Amitabha promises, has done that. they've, in their mind, said, I want to go. I know I can. My potential is to be reborn in the Pure Land like all those other people have been. I can go there. I want to go. Right? Qiu shang jing du ami tofo. So that was the second. And I wanted to repeat what we came up with. There were some different ideas behind ways of looking at this vow. You could say it's just a big desire, and desire is bad, right? Well, it's more than that. It's more than just, it's a pure desire. It's based on Amitabha's kindness. And so we think about that. Here's the story behind the Pure Land is that there was a practitioner, his name was Fa Zhang Dhammakara in the past, and he, as he cultivated the practices of the Buddha, he was a practitioner, he made vows with his merit and virtue that he created. And he said, I want to not enjoy the goodness that comes from having oolong tea, dongding oolong. It's not that I want to appreciate, to cash in all of the goodness that I've created. I want to give it to others. I want to transfer, 回向, the merit, and in the future create a place without suffering. Anyone who wants to go there, recite my name, and you can. That was the vow, which is, if you think about it, a very kind act. It's like a father who goes out and, father of a family, for example, and goes out and works hard, puts in overtime, and every penny of the money he earns, he brings back home to support his spouse, her spouse, and children, and elders, and grandparents, and aunts and uncles, gives it all away. Dhammakara, Fa Zhang, gave it all away to create a Pure Land. So there's kindness in this act. And this is the point we made, that if you think about why would somebody decide to go to the Pure Land, they're drawn by kindness. Other people, you might say, aren't drawn by kindness, they're repelled by the reality of suffering. A negative motive takes them. I can't stand this world. I got to get out of here. We got to get out of this place, right? So they choose to go to the Pure Land reacting against something horrible. All right, that'll do it. If you suffer enough, you can go. But look instead at this. Here's an image I wanted to share with everybody. Here's an artist's depiction of Amitabha. Does he look like this? Well, can't tell you. But these images came from somewhere. That's a kind face. He doesn't look harmful. He doesn't look edgy. He doesn't look cynical or angry or jealous. Any of those. He looks unafflicted, right? Amitabha is called Tzu Fu, the kind father. Look at how round his face is. Amitabha says, you recite my name, I'll take you to my land. Okay? That's nice. So, what if our reason for deciding that we wanted to go to the Pure Land was a strong, happy pull to see our kind Father. Right? Okay, now, I was raised Protestant, Christian, as a child, and I have to say that I didn't develop a strong positive pull to God the Father of the Hebrews. I was told that God loves me, but when I looked at the pictures, this is the figure that I was given. This is the vision of Ezekiel. It's not a happy, okay, just by comparison, but I'm just saying, spontaneously, organically, as a child, even God from the Sistine Chapel also did not compel me, did not draw me organically. I want to get as close to this person as I can, right? So, just on the face of it. Now, theologians will tell you God is love, etc. But you compare those faces, and do these artists know? Well, somehow this is the feeling that they got when they thought about Amitabha. It's very different, right? So, the kind Father, an image that takes you to the Pure Land by attraction instead of, which is a positive motive, instead of repulsion, negative motive. Right? Just by comparison. So people will say, oh, I left Christianity, why do I need another God? Amitabha is not that. Amitabha is a guide. He's an architect. Amitabha is a builder. He created a land and then gave it away. Okay? So, comparing physiognomy, kindness, no jealousy, no anger, but instead, this feeling of, I would like to get close to that person because I feel safe. This is Shifu at his most stern, and even so, right? You can see there's not a harmful bone. Okay? So, all right. So, we're pulled towards the Pure Land, and we want to make a vow. The other point that we made talking about vows, and now we haven't got to practice yet, and that was supposed to be my topic, but I wanted to cover the things that I said so we can get a full sense of it. Faith was, how do you visualize the Pure Land? Ask Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Vows we're drawn to kindness. Maybe some of us are repelled by suffering, but if you really want to put it in the heart, go to the Pure Land because Amitabha is the kind Father. Furthermore, we asked another expert who was Master Xing'an Dashi. He was the author of a book called Quan Fa Puti Xin Wen, an essay on the exhortation to make the resolve for Bodhi. And he was a early Qingchu monk who believed in the Pure Land, was reborn, died and then came back to tell people, recite the Buddha's name, died again. A lot of stories there. So what did he say? He said, one of the main reasons to seek rebirth in the Western land of Amitabha is this one. Here in our world, it's hard to practice. There are lots of obstacles to faith, to vows, and to practice. It's just hard to keep it going, to get to a place where we are yi xin bu lan, which is what they say we need to be as we recite the Buddha's name. To be, what is yi xin bu lan? It means free of other thoughts. Free of other thoughts, other than, I want to see my kind father. It's hard to do it, says Master Xing'an. When we get to the Pure Land, there are no obstacles. Here in the suffering Saha world, they say, you can cultivate for lifetimes, and there's always something pulling you back. Oh, you'd like to cultivate, but the kids you can't hit the wooden fish because the kids are crying, or they're just got to sleep, or your mother-in-law has arrived and you have to spend time with your in-laws and you can't cultivate, right? Go to the Pure Land, and in a single lifetime, we can become a Buddha. That's the difference, says Master Xing'an. That's another reason to seek rebirth in the Pure Land. Okay, here we go. Ready? Why then do we practice? What is the point? Amitabha Buddha said, if you want to go to the Pure Land, you have to do certain things. Call my name. Namo Ami Tofo. Namo Amitabha. Namo Amita Buddha. Right? And he said, if you do that, that's the ticket. When you do that, every sound of my name, he said, plants a lotus or fertilizes a lotus in the Pure Land. You're looking at a lotus right there on the screen. And the more you recite, the bigger your lotus grows. When you pass away, in the next instant, as your consciousness leaves your body, you are reborn in the lotus that was planted and fertilized and nourished by every sound of my name. You have to want to go there, and then you have to recite my name. Namo Amitabha, Namo Amitofo. Can you do that? Go to the Pure Land. I'll see you there. Come to the Pure Land, he said. So, what a fascinating means of travel, right? That's your visa. That's your passport to get you out of quarantine for 2 weeks in the hotel and across the border safe in the Pure Land, where suffering ends. And your work as a bodhisattva continues. That's what we learned in the first lecture. The Pure Land is like an academy where you train to become a Buddha. Okay, that's it. However, how long is a single lifetime in the Pure Land? Okay. Hold on. The Avatamsaka Sutra will tell you. Just a minute. Here we go. Be right with you. I want to be accurate when I tell you. This is all my Avatamsaka materials here. Here we go. Says, this person, this is the Flower Garland Sutra, this person will see himself, herself, born from a lotus flower, will receive a prediction from the Buddha. In this way, he or she will pass through numberless, hundreds of thousands, of myriads of nayutas, of eons. There's your answer right there. Numberless, 无数百千亿哪有他劫. With the power of wisdom, with the accord with the minds of living beings, to benefit them everywhere throughout indescribable and inexpressible worlds. Then it says, you'll become a Buddha. Then it says, even until the ends of an ocean of eons in the future, you will continue to benefit living beings as a Buddha. So, answer to your question, how long do you live in the Pure Land? you stay there training to become a Buddha through numberless hundreds of thousands of myriads of nayutas of eons. It's a long time, right? Many, many zeros in that number. All right, that's the answer to your question. So, practice. What counts as practice? What counts as practice is not only, I need my, let's see, here we go. Not that. I'm going to go right back where I was before. Sorry. Here we are. Okay. The text that I want is this one right here. Okay. Here is faith, 信. Here is vows, 愿. Here is practices, 行 or Heng. Okay. And pop this up. Here are the things available to us should we decide that we want to go off to be reborn in Amitabha's land. What do? They are called together Pureland practices. They are also called Great Compassion practices, and they include such things as reciting Amitabha's name, Namo Amitofo. What else will get you to the Pureland? Reciting the after rebirth mantra, Namo Amidopo Ye, Toto Chedo Ye, Wang Sheng Zhou, Ye Kei. You want to be reborn in the Pure Land? You have to make the vow. I wish to be born there. I know I can. That is my potential. I can do it. I trust Amitabha's method. I will be reborn there. Okay? So then you Namo Amitofo, recite the Buddha's name, or Namo Amidopoye, recite the mantra. That works. Another one, you recite the Amitabha Sutra. Thus I have heard. At one time, the Buddha dwelt at Sravasti in the Jada Grove in the garden of the benefactor of the orphans and the solitary, together with a gathering of great bhikshus, 1259. 如是我问，一是否在舍卫国七数济故度愿，遇到比丘众前250人聚，皆大阿罗汉. So you recite the sutra, Amitabha's small sutra, but any one of the 3 Amitabha sutras will do. That also will take you to the Pure Land if you have made the vow. I want to be born there. I know I can. Further, you want to recite with a single mind, they say. 一心念, that'll do it. Okay, now, here's a fun one. This is very interesting. Look at this. There are more methods to practice. These are the 3 standard relating entirely to Amitabha. What we learned in the Avatamsaka was that if we cultivate according to Pushen Pusa Shirda Yanwang, Samantabhadra's 10 practices and vows from chapter 40 of the Avatamsaka, we also can be reborn in the Pure Land. So, this is the crossover. This is where many cultivators, on one hand, really want to go to the Pure Land. On the other hand, really enjoy Huayan Jing and Pushen Pusa. They cross over. They become one practice, according to Pushen Pusa, Samantabhadra's practices and vows. Check chapter 40 of the Avatamsaka Sutra in the benefits section. After the 10 vows are done, that's where Samantabhadra tells Sudana, Shansai Tongzi, about going to the Pure Land. So he says, if you can do the 10 things that Samantabhadra Bodhisattva teaches us, you can go to the Pure Land if you make the vow. What are they? First is to worship and respect all Buddhas. Second vow is to praise the thus come ones. Third is to cultivate the giving of offerings. Fourth, to repent and reform all karmic errors. Fifth, to compliantly rejoice in merit and virtue. Sixth is to request the turning of the Dharma wheel. Seventh, request that the Buddhas dwell in the world. Eighth, always follow the Buddhas and study. Ninth, to accord with living beings, and tenth, to universally transfer all merit and virtue. That will do it. Let me, 你会吗? 你已经念了. 好的, good, okay. It's great to have a translator, saves so much time. Okay, so who would think that Samantabhadra's practices and vows also counts as a Jingdu Faman, also counts as a Dabe Faman. Okay, now, here's more. Look here. If you make a vow to be reborn in the Pure Land, you can also recite the Great Compassion mantra of Guanyin Bodhisattva. Nian Da Bei Zhou, Guanyin Pusata Da Bei Zhou. And the key is, you have to make the vow to be reborn in the West. Now, one of the features, this is called the lore, L-O-R-E, you know that word? The teachings surrounding Pure Land is there are what are called the Shifang San Sheng, the three sages of the Pure Land, and they include Amitabha Buddha, Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, and Mahastamaprapta, Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta, Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. Lots of ahs in those. Mahastamaprapta, 6 ahs in his name. Great strength, we call him. Dashizhi Pusa, Hayo Guanshiyin Pusa. They are the 2 helpers of Amitabha, and the story goes that when Amitabha's vows are complete, when he retires, so to speak, and he's taught everyone he is contracted to teach, Guanyin Bodhisattva steps up and becomes the new teaching host, the Jiaozhu of the Western Land. And the teaching continues. The great wide doorway of the Pure Land stays open. When Guanyin's time of teaching is over, great strength Bodhisattva replaces Guanyin. So that's why this method of Pure Land practice is reliable and a good one. It's, they say, the best one for this time. So, another way to get to the Western Land, recite the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva. Namo Dabe Guan Shiyin Pusa. The Bodhisattva, the awakened being who hears the cries of the world. So by reciting Namo Guanyin Pusa, we can also go to the Pure Land if we make the vow. Next, what else? Should we recite Miao Fa Lian Hua Jing Guan Shiyin Pusa Pu Men Pin, chapter 25 of the Lotus Sutra, which is called the door, the gateway to everywhere. Many, many translations of Pu Men Pin. Universal Door chapter is pure Chinglish, Pu Men Pin, universal door. It has a kind of an appeal, right? A door to the universe, the gateway to universality, the gateway to every part of the Dharma realm. Reciting the Pu Men Pin will also take us to Amitabha's Pure Land if we make the vow. What else? Another sutra, Lang Yan Jing, if we recite Da Shi Zhi Pusa Nian Fo Yuan Tong Zhang, right? Da Shi Zhi Fa Wang Zi Yu Qi Tong Lun Wu Shi Er Pusa. That section, it's a brief section from the 25 Sages chapter of the Shurangama Sutra, talks about great strength, Mahastamaprapta. Reciting that from memory will also take us to the Pure Land. One delegation that we took to Asia following Master Hsuan Hua, Shifu made everyone who went on the delegation memorize the passage on great strength from the Shurangama. And it was true that where we went places before we started lectures, we were in lecture halls throughout Malaysia. We were in KL, and then we went up to Penang, and we went to Ibao, and then we went to Taiping. Everywhere we went, Shifu would have us put our palms together and go Lang Yan Jing, 25 Sheng, Da Shi Zhi Pusa, Nian Fo Yuan Tong Zhang, Da Shi Zhi Fa Wang Zi Yu Qi Tong Lun Wu Shi Er. You know, we would recite it all together. It was impressive, and people who couldn't do it at the start, by the time we were done, everybody wanted to, right? It was good. Then, the last one that I know, and maybe somebody will come up with more, is among what are called the 42 hands and eyes. There is the blue lotus, hand and eye, which also takes us to the Pure Land. So, when we talk about Xing, doing what Amitabha offers, is holding out to us, Amitabha says, all you have to do, come to the Pure Land, it's a nice place, recite my name. There are other practices which also work with the same result. Got it? You understand how this is? It's Xin Yuan Xing. I believe it's there. I want to go. How do I get there? Practice. What kind of practice? Namo Omitofo. 1. Namo Omitopo Ye, the mantra. 2. 如是我问，一是佛在舍卫国. The Amitabha Sutra. 3. Samantabhadra's 10 practices and vows. 4. Great Compassion Mantra. 5. Guanyin Bodhisattva's name. 6. The Pumenpin from the Lotus Sutra. 7. Dashatir section from the Shurangama. 8. And 42 hands and eyes, the Blue Lotus hand. All work to get us there. Okay, does reciting Medicine Master Buddha take Amitabha's Buddha's Pure Land? No. Question, if you recite Medicine Buddha's mantra, take us to Amitabha's Pure Land. Nope. But it will take you to Medicine Buddha's Pure Land. There's more to learn here. Which is what? When we talk about Pure Lands, there's more than one. And this is one of the things that I really like about the Dharma, is while we're here in our human bodies cultivating along, we rely upon Pure Lands that we've heard the stories about. Typically, Amitabha's Pure Land in the west, Sukhavati, and Medicine Buddha's Pure Land in the east, called Pure Vaidurya light, lapis lazuli light. What I like about the Buddha Dharma is make your own Pure Land. Every single time we transfer merit, Hui Shang Gongde, that is an opportunity for us to say, I dedicate this merit with the wish that my Pure Land will be complete, to gather living beings in, with Bodhisattva Dharma protectors there, and all living beings are welcome. May it be not deficient in any way, right? Where did Amitabha's Pure Land come from? And now, temporarily suspend your skepticism, temporarily suspend your cynicism, temporarily trash your disbelief, be as innocent as a young child hearing about something wonderful, and realize that the Pure Land is there now. This is not fantasy land, right? It's really real. We hear about it in the clothes of a religion and all of the stuff that the religion throws in our way to make it hard for us to accept the reality of it. But we can just step aside from all that. Buddhism has relatively less of that. We don't have a priest class in the middle. You notice that? You don't depend upon the Sangha to get to the Pure Land. You don't. You depend upon your own faith, vows, and practice. Notice that? There's no priest here telling you that you have to do this and do this. The sutra is yours to pick up and cultivate. Recite to the place of I Xin Wulan. No other thoughts than, I want to go to the Pure Land. And you can. And people do. That's the point. Everything that I said about the Western Pure Land is true as well. about the Eastern Pure Land, which is the Pure Land of Medicine Buddha. How do you know about that? Read the Sutra of the Past Vows of Medicine Master Buddha. Yao Shi Fu, right? Yao Shi Liu Li Guang Ru Lai Ban Yuan Gong De Qing. Sutra of the Past Vows, the fundamental vows of Medicine Master Buddha, Lapis Lazuli Lab. It talks about the Pure Land that he created in the very same way. So, where do those Pure Lands, those paradises, what's the plural of paradises? Where do they come from? They come from human mind tuned to the good and willing to endure hard work on behalf of others. True. True. Dharma Master Xing'an has a comment, upholding precepts such as the 8 precepts. Sets us on that path as well. Excellent. And what do we have to do? We have to make a vow that says, I too would like to be reborn in Amitabha's land of utmost happiness. Okay, now that's the theory. I put together 3 stories that are my own stories. You have to know that after so many centuries and millennia of Pure Land practice, many, many stories have been collected about people who did just this. The saying says, they knew in advance their time had come, right? They knew that they had the opportunity to go through the door of faith and vows to be reborn in Amitabha's land. And they recited the Buddha's name, or they cultivated this goodness, and when they died, something amazing happened. There are hundreds and thousands of these stories. They've been collected. They're mostly all in Chinese. Somebody should make a vow to translate these texts and make them available to Westerners. The Pure Land practice is slowly coming to the West. One of the reasons is we've kind of had male patriarchal authority figures in the sky for a long time, and a lot of people are kind of wounded by that, the angry, jealous God, or just feel distant. They don't want another God that they have to learn how to relate to, and etc. The Buddha's teaching makes that very easy to do. You just have to open your heart and practice. You don't have to accept, I believe that Amitabha will save me. You just have to do what he said, and without affirming belief or disbelief, it happens. Right? You meet Amitabha. So, there's lots of stories about people who went off to rebirth. Monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen, kings, homeless people, right? Hermits, women, men, generals, wanderers, right? Recite the Buddha's name, go off to rebirth. Lots of stories. Okay, Wesley has a question. Why are there 9 stages of lotuses? You'd have to ask Amitabha. Why don't you do that? Send him an email. Why did you make 9, not 12, right? Why not 10? Okay. So, the quick answer, and I'm being facetious to answer that way. Why 9? Well, inquiring minds need to know, right? We want to know. The theory goes, and there are many, many, many treatises, many commentaries on Pure Land practice. I wanted to keep this at a certain depth for folks who are hearing this for the very first time. I'm speaking in English, right? And certainly online, there are people who are old practitioners. Our monk at Berkeley Monastery, Dharma Master Jinfo, has been leading people in reciting the Buddha's name every week now for years, and doing Buddha recitations. And we have people online who now, let's see here, Guan Wuliang Shoufuji. There are people who recite the Buddha's name 10, 20, 30,000 times a day, listening right now. People who are experienced old cultivators. So, Wesley, the layout of the Pure Land is explained in the Sutras, particularly, as Dharma Master Xing'an has told us here, is in the Guan Wuliang Shou Fo Jing, the third of the three. But Xing'an Shi, Wesley was asking why. Why? Well, why is, Amitabha said, suppose you're a nasty, rotten person who has lots of bad habits and faults and karmic errors, but you still recite the Buddha's name. Suppose you are somebody of dull faculties, somebody who just couldn't remember anything you learned in school, didn't have the chance to go to school, were, systematically suppressed, prevented from going to school, but you still believe in the Pure Land, want to go there and recite, you can get there. It's called Sangan Pu Bi. 3 categories of human natures, right? The Buddha says, I want to bring everybody there. So, the 9 stages of lotuses that you meet, and he explains them, and Shifu did explain them at various times. There's the Shang Shang Pin, the Zhong Shang Shang Pin, Xia Shang San Pin. There's the 9, the 9 grades. It's to accommodate all the different qualities of people who begin reciting. That's why. So, but why 9? Why not 12? I don't know. So that's pretty wonderful. The Buddha this is not a religion for elites. It is not a system that rewards wealthy people and ignores poor people. It rewards faithful people and ignores nobody. So what a nifty, wonderful practice. Okay, your question caught me right in the middle of my warm-up to my stories, right? So there are all these stories, and somebody, you can go online, I'm sure they're in public domain. They're called Wang Sheng Lu, things like that, the records of people who have gone on to rebirth. These stories have been collected for 1,000 years, and they include every walk of life. So, one of the best stories that I told on my first lecture in this series was about, actually Wesley, I think you were in California at this time, at ITI, International Translation Institute, when Master Hua had just moved down to Burlingame out of San Francisco for his this is 1992 to 1991 to 94, I think, or no, 91, 92, 93. And I won't repeat the whole story, but the gist of it was, I was standing in for Shifu lecturing on Sunday mornings to the audience who came from Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, Sunnyvale, Cupertino, San Jose. And then later, people came up from LA to listen sometimes, because Shifu was there. I didn't have a story to tell at the end of my lecture. I asked if anybody knew anyone who had gone off to rebirth in their own families or connections. I expected nobody. Hands all over the room went up. I know. And it was Wang Hongyi, who later became a monk and then passed away. Talk about going to the Pure Land. Wang Hongyi said, yes, yes, old Mrs. Wang, who lives in our condo. My wife and I didn't hear her wooden fish. We went down, opened her door. She was sitting on the bed with a gentle smile on her face, dead, gone off to rebirth. A smell, an incense smell, a wonderful fragrance was in the room. And everybody at this lecture went, you know, and then more hands. Yeah, yeah, I know someone in Taiwan. I know someone in Vietnam, you know. And these stories are still happening. So amazing, amazing, right? Okay, for my second lecture, I told the story, my own personal story, of bowing around the Buddha Hall, a city of 10,000 Buddhas, and on the sidewalk outside the Wan Fo Dian, where our retreats take place, and seeing a pair of yellow cotton monk's shoes appear in front of my face, and looking up, and here was Master Hua. And I took my chance, which is usually not a good thing to ask, but I said, Shifu, what's the best practice, to cultivate? And, you know, a question like that pretty much always gets a slap down. Why are you so greedy? They're all good. There's none that is better than any other. 84,000, they're all number one. You've heard me say that 1,000,000 times. Why do you still ask? Right? Shifu didn't say that. He looked me in the eye, and I was kneeling, and he was standing there with a smile on his face. He said, Yao nian fo shi wu liang guang. He said, recite the Buddha's name. It's limitless light. He said. And he walked away, and I'm, It was totally unexpected for Shifu to answer me. Yao nian fo shi wu liang guang. 7 words. Recite the Buddha's name. It is limitless light. Amitabha means limitless light. And it was such a, they say, a dang tou bang he, right? A whack across the head, out of kindness, gently and succinctly. You don't get straighter talk than that, right? So, how powerful. And that is a practice that I will practice. I have one more story, and our time is up already, and I'd like the monks at Berkeley to talk a little bit about what's coming up, but not right now, in just a minute. This is a story that I haven't told except in my journals. I was on staff at Gold Buddha Monastery in Vancouver, along with Marty Verhoeven, Hung Chao. He and I were both on staff there. I was still silent. I was keeping this is in my 6 years of silence. And we were learning how to work with the community, the lay community in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Amazing, faithful disciples, mostly from Hong Kong, which means, of course, mostly Cantonese speakers. And generations, they were young, they were old. There were Buddhist disciples from before I was born, some of them. And they would show up outside the door of Gold Buddha Monastery at 7:30 every morning of the week. And they were happy to have 2 young monks there to lead them in practice. We explained sutras twice a day. 讲经说法，每天2次. Oh, and we didn't know what, we were raw beginners. And they stayed with us. And I would speak in English, and I would translate into my own Mandarin, and then a volunteer would translate into Cantonese. They heard everything 3 times. Oh my God. And they stayed awake. They didn't give us the feeling that we were boring, Oh my goodness. So we learned, you could say we learned our trade in those years in Vancouver. One day, an old layman, I've forgotten his name. He was an elderly Vietnamese layman who followed everything we did. Everything. He was always there, always there. And he passed away. He was old. And because he was such a faithful Buddha reciter, everybody was, confident that he would be reborn in the Western land. Well, it so happened that weekend that his rebirth ceremony, our version of a funeral, is focused on the Pure Land, happened. Shifu was visiting from San Francisco. And it was a Saturday afternoon. We had done the ceremony, and ordinarily the monks would do it. We'd recite the Sutra, recite the mantra 7 times, recite other mantras, prepare a bowl of food to offer, and be sincere, and then we do the transference. Yan shang xi bang jing du zhong jiu pin lian hua wei fu mu hua kai jian fo wu sheng wu tui pu sa wei ban lu. We recite that verse, and that's our, we assume that the sincerity of the person's own recitation plus the assembly there, and the Wangsheng Tang, the rebirth hall at Gold Buddha, we shared it with the Yansheng Tang, the Long Life Hall and the Rebirth Hall were on 2 sides of a single room that we'd built down there. So one altar, Buddha's facing, Amitabha facing Medicine Buddha. And this was a funeral for the old gentleman, Mr. Win was his name. And his paiwei was there, his plaque that we have his name, and everything was, and the room was packed full of people. Why? Shifu was there. This was the one weekend out of 3 months that Master Hua came up to Canada to see us. So I was the Weno, I was the ceremony master. Marty hit the wooden fish. So we were the 2 ceremony monks. Master Hua was standing in the host seat, the host position, his bowing bench in the center of the hall. And we were doing the ceremony, and I was just focused on, I had my eyes closed, and I was focused on not wanting to make a mistake with the chanting and all. And the ceremony went along, and when it was over, everybody went out of the hall, and Shifu went up to greet the guests, greet the people. Marty came over and said, "Did you see it?" And I said, "What?" I didn't say what. I shook my head. He said, "You didn't see it? You didn't see it?" And I'm like, "What?" He said, "Oh man." He said, while we were reciting, he said, in the center of the room, there was this cloud trail from the paiwei off into the distance, and it was like a distance that was no distance. He said, it was off in the sky. He said, something like the soul or something came out of the paiwei and traveled up this cloud road and went through a door far away, and Shifu was holding the door open. And he went, and there was light, and it was amazing. And I didn't see anything. I was with my eyes closed. He says, yeah, I don't think I used my eyes either, but I saw it. He said, it was amazing. Shifu crossed him over, he said. And I'm like, I didn't see it. So Shifu saw it. Marty saw Shifu take someone to the Pure Land. Amazing. And so just moments like that. And then, just over, and everybody went out to get a cup of tea. And if you saw it, you saw it. If you didn't see it, something ordinary in the life of a Dharma master who has fa, li, right? Who has gongda, merit and virtue. Taking somebody across. So, do you believe that if we recite the Buddha's name, at the end of life, we can go to the Pure Land? If you don't, Why not? Doesn't hurt you a bit to be young and innocent instead of too smart and cynical, right? So there you go. Thank you for asking me to share stories of faith, vows, and practice for the Amitabha session at CTDB. That was a treat, great opportunity. And I'm glad that people joined us. Please do come back for our Avatamsaka Sutra lectures every week if this is your first time to join in. Appreciate it. 220 of us on YouTube today. Two two eight, 228 in the Chinese side. Hey, more on the Chinese side than on YouTube. Okay, great. All right, how many on Zoom? Okay. I wanted to share one thing here that is doesn't exist yet. Can you all see up here? What is that? Oh my goodness. Well, you're looking at the north side of the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. 64 in the Vietnamese translation. Okay, 64, 22822. What is this? This is the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. You're looking at Bancroft Street, which is the street that Vice President Kamala Harris was born on, interestingly. That's the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery with something that isn't up yet. That is a virtual rendition of a mural of Guanyin Bodhisattva that is going to be installed on the side of the monastery. So this is a bus stop where kids' school buses stop. We have schools to the right, to the left, and behind. So everybody passing down Bancroft Street will get to look at Guanyin Bodhisattva. And what's nice about this mural is all the animals. There's the pool of the 7 jewels, but look at, there are kitty cats. Pureland has a kitty cat now. There are deer, there are coyotes and owls and turtles and swans and fish. This is a light reflecting here. So, this is Carolyn Hansen, stained glass and reflective stone mural of Guanyin that's going to be a public display there at the Berkeley Monastery on the wall for people to see every day going by. So we're very happy about that. It doesn't exist yet, it's not there, right? We put it on, use a computer to put it on there. But we hope that within the next couple months, if all goes well, everybody will be able to see Guanyin there on the street. Contribution to the energy of Berkeley. All right, Jinwei, Jinchuan, Jinfo, would you like to tell us a bit about anything coming up?
Okay, would you be able to go to the berkeleymonastery.org website? The easiest for people to see. So the Pureland talks by Rev Sure, today is the last one, so that will be removed from the top. And if you go down, the next one, Rev Sure has been starting an interfaith lecture on Master Hua's teaching on interfaith and intrafaith, which have been quite well received. I got an email that people now know why we have the Pali chanting in the morning at the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. I think that was the story that was just told.
Good.
Below that, we have a retreat that's closing very soon on the 4 boundless hearts with Jingwei Shi and myself. So if you would like to join, please sign up pretty much today or tomorrow so that we can send you the information to register for that. And then below that, we have Stephen Tainer is going to be starting his class on the 6 perfections on January 13th, mid-January. And also Dr. Martin Verhoeven, you heard the story today about Marty. He'll be getting his Avatamsaka Sutra lectures early February. So that's what's kind of new in the monastery. Otherwise, our regular daily ceremonies are still going on. 5 a.m. morning ceremony, 6:15 meditation, 7:15 Dharma reflections, followed by 3 steps, 1 bow at 7:30. And then we recite the Buddha's name or Guan's name at 12:30 p.m. every day. So welcome to join us for everything. Oh, also Dharma Radio, the new album of Buddhist songs by Rev Sure, if you would wish to listen to Buddhist music.
All right, good, appreciate that. I just clicked on the Dharma Radio link to tell everybody that there is a new album of Buddhist folk songs, Buddhist literature into song. If you click on this, you go to Dharma Radio, that's our address, Dharma Radio, one word, DHARMARADIO. And you go out, you can listen to clips from the songs. If you'd like to go to iTunes, you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, etc. But if you would like to do a good deed, click on Good Karma Music. Do a good deed, whatever you consider to be something worth doing. Go to this page here. Tell us what you did. What is your email? Where do you live? What's the name of the story you did? Tell us what it is. Then tell us what 1 + 1 is. Submit your post, and you get your choice of album from the 3 that are on the site right now. We'll send it to you free, or you could say, for a good deed. Somebody, Hui Bin, said, one of the good deeds I did in 2020 finally started what I wanted to do for years, upload and produce videos of Master Hua. I hope I do it my whole life, do it as much as I can. I hope the project inspires people. That's a good deed, indeed. All right, we'll send you that, send you music for that. Susan from Hercules, California. I'm a teacher, 1st grade in public school, 20th year. It's been hard for kids. To make Zoom lessons more interesting, I incorporated thematic teaching with sharing. In October, they shared the colors of fall leaves and made leaf books. For November, we did stories on the meaning of Thanksgiving, what we're thankful for. I shared the unfertilized egg from a dove that was left in my bird feeder, because I give bird seeds every day. Perhaps that's their way of showing gratitude. For December, we did the meaning of Christmas, kindness with family and friends. An injured bird stayed in my backyard seeking shelter for 3 days and nights, until one night the temperature dropped to the low 40s. I didn't see it the next day. I shared pics of the earthworms that ventured out from the rain, said don't step on any, don't squish ladybugs. They all belong to nature. This way the students inadvertently learn the vocabulary and skills in a fun way and the importance of being kind. I hope by teaching young minds that if we show kindness to sentient creatures, it will provide the opportunity for them to practice and earn kindness in return. They always love to see my pictures on kindness in Zoom class. Yes, indeed. Oh, some from Cuernavaca, Mexico. Some from San Jose. Look at that. This is great. We're starting to get some good stories. So please do a good deed if you care to. We would be happy to reward you with music. Good karma music. Omi Tofo, thank you for that. Alrighty. So to finish today, just to say see you next week for sure, we're going to recite the Medicine Buddha mantra, because the sounds from the Medicine Buddha mantra, ordinarily we would recite a transference of merit here. You can transfer to your Pureland, by golly, but you can still do that. You can transfer anywhere you'd like, and instead of our may every living being ordinary transference, we're going to let our transference wishes go out with Medicine Buddha's mantra. This is in Sanskrit. 这是梵文. 这是 one of the early languages that this mantra was in. And we do it with a banjo. But the important part is that you make a wish. When we make wishes with our minds together, they get real strength. And We use the power of Medicine Buddha's virtue to send this into our hearts to balance things. Where we're too much, it's reduced. Where we're deficient, we add. We come back to the middle way. Okay? So please make that wish. We'll see you all next week. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Guru Vaidurya Prabhajaya Tathagaya Arhate Aya Tadyata Vaisajya Samukate Swaha Bhagavate Vaisajya Vaidurya Prabhajaya Tathagaya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Vadyanta Vaisajya Samudgate Swaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Vaidurya Prabhajaya Tathagaya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Vadyanta Om Vaisajya Samudgate Swaha. Thanks again to the many hands who made it possible for this lecture to go out to the world. It's a lot of hard work, much gratitude. Okay, we're going to ring the bell 3 times. Invite you to join me in bowing to the Buddhas. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Om Mito Ho. See you next week. Bye-bye.